Welcome to Surthrival, the podcast about befriending grief. I'm your host, Stacia Gaines. I am excited today to introduce my friend John Cooper. John was in our youth group back in the early 90s at University Baptist Church in Fort Worth, Texas. And John has floated in and out of my life since that time, close to 40 years ago.
That'd be right.
And John has a very interesting grief story. Listeners, you know that I believe that grief comes in all different forms. And John's story is not about death, but John's story comes from making some bad choices that ultimately led him to serve time in the Texas Correctional Facility. So, John, welcome to Surthrival.
It's an
Introduce
honor
yourself
to be
to our
here.
listeners.
Well, hello. It is a true pleasure and honor to be on your podcast, Stacia. So thank you for allowing me to be here. My name is John Cooper. I'm a third generation Fort Worth, Texas resident. I'm married. I've got 4 children. The older 2 are stepchildren. The younger 2 are teenagers with my wife, Jennifer. This summer we'll be married 7. Stacia and I did know each other and began when she and her husband taught Sunday school. And it was a joyful time. They were a fun young couple and started a wonderful process of getting to know them and carried forward many years.
Yeah. Tell us your grief story, John.
You know, the word grief almost is too small a word. It's just 5 letters. And yet it encapsulates so much. It's such a loaded term. And I don't know that in our society we fully take in the process of accepting and dealing with grief because it's hard. And both to the recipient of the grief and the one that causes grief, it's uncomfortable either way you look at it. And a lot of our society, right or wrong, tends to say, take this or that thing or do this or that to just bypass the grief. Try to assuage it, when in reality, I have found the best thing to deal with grief is to just talk about it head first, look it in the eye. There's such joy and relief in transparency,
Yes.
in humility, and just saying, this is what I did. This is who I was and the things that caused grief. And here's what the Lord brought me through. So to begin, like I said, I've been married nearly 17 years. Probably about 15 years ago, I began to be in need. It was the recession time frame, and I found myself with my career doing home loans to be struggling, newly married. We had a child on the way, and I was lacking in funds and couldn't seem to find a job. And so I kept pursuing the mortgage industry, but I needed some funds to take care of a situation for my stepchildren. And, it was around, give or take, $10,000. And I began to ask friends for help. And here's where this began. I got my friends to help, but all the friends at the same time said I can help when I really only needed one to help. And so while I had been waiting on them to respond, I had approached somebody that a friend at church told me about that helped people when they had fallen on hard financial times and a bank wouldn't help them. And that just sounded dandy because I was both naive and in dire need. And I took out a loan, and it began a process of, as I'm paying back the loan, I accepted the funds from those people when I no longer needed them. The need had already been met. And instead of telling them, I'm good, thank you, here's the money back, I kept it. And it began a process of, well, that was so easy to get that money and to keep it. And as this goes down the line of me working, slowly building my business back. I began to, unfortunately, more money was demanded of me that I repay to that initial pseudo bank individual. And so I start going to friends and family, and you start telling the same need that was already met a year and a half ago. My wife needs hearing aids. The hearing aid need had already been met, but now I'm telling someone else I need money from my wife to have hearing aids. And it started the process of me constantly asking people for money so I could pay back other people to whom I owed money, and thinking to myself, if I could just do a little bit more, a few more home loans next month, I could clean it up and pay everyone back and it'd be fine.
So
And
how long did this go on?
years. It
Years.
goes on for years. It goes till easily 2017, 2018. I am at some point in time, I no longer even want to write down what I owe to people because it's just become staggering. And it's overwhelming, and you just keep digging.
So what what happened? How did you land in prison?
At some point in time, the house of cards collapses. And at first, I think that I can fight my case, and I do, because you think that's the appropriate thing to do. Eventually, within a few years, and COVID slowed things down a little bit, eventually, I believe I'm going to go to a sentencing day and that I'm going to get a certain outcome of what would be called probation with restitution. And despite relatively feeling like that's the way it's going to go, that's not the way it went. And
Mhm.
the judge felt differently. In reality, I don't know that I'll ever be able to speak to that judge, but he actually was extremely insightful. The smarter move was going to be the short-term pain move. The smarter thing to do is you just need to take your lumps. And so instead of him saying this certain outcome and I remain free, he said, you're sentenced to TDCJ effective immediately, and we're taking you now.
Wow.
And so I land in prison, and that's where, the grief had begun years earlier
Mhm.
when simple things of I'm so preoccupied with moving around all this money, making outrageous promises to people. I'm ignoring my family, my children. I'm ignoring my wife. I'm completely unaccountable.
So were you actually experiencing grief over that then, John, in spite of the fact that you continued your behavior?
Grief is a funny thing because we tend to think grief in regards to death. And we think, well, that was a final act, therefore I have grief. I'm firmly of the belief grief can be a perpetual process of choices of I did this action, I'm experiencing grief over it because I know what I did was wrong. Grief is a consequence of poor behavior, of bad choices. It is the feeling.
Well, in your case, but not in all cases.
Not in all
Yeah.
cases.
Okay.
Mine for sure. For me, these are choices that I was making that
Right.
were bringing about the grief and the reality of I'm continuing to hurt those around me in an attempt to make it better. I continually make it worse to the point in time that the grief is almost like an avalanche of grief of, and now you are going to be bodily removed from your family, from your children, and you're just not going to be available to them. And that hits particularly hard. It'd be one thing if you didn't have children or a spouse, if you didn't have people who cared about you. I had all of those,
Yeah.
and
So
very hard.
you go into this sentencing and you think that you're going home with kind of a slap on the wrist, and
Yes,
they take you immediately to
right
prison.
there.
Talk about those early days of prison and kind of the maybe the fear, the grief, the anxiety that you felt those early
So
days?
it is so hard to encapsulate to the average United States citizen what prison is, because it is such a removal from it's such an abstract place from anything that anyone could have experienced or could even grasp. The first few days, it's basically a period of shock. They're trying to make sure that you don't literally go into shock, that you don't stroke out, because everything that you view as a norm or a basic of life,
Or
that
right.
all a right,
Hmm.
all of that is going to be stripped away, and you have to very quickly come to a place where I either can step up mentally and physically with what's going to be required of me, or you see people in the prison system that, oh, that is what it looks like when you give up. That's what it looks like when someone has surrendered, and that is a quite awful outcome.
Did you
It
ever think about giving up, surrendering, like, I can't do this?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I have no trepidation in saying, or fear. Your first few weeks, you are literally thinking, how could I just bring about my end? You're
Mm.
looking around, you're thinking crazy thoughts, and unfortunately, they are aware, the administration is aware that this will be, because Texas is considered one of the worst in the nation, prison systems. They know this is what you're thinking, and so
So to be clear, you're talking about thinking about ending your life, about
you are
suicide.
actively thinking about ending your life. You are looking around and trying to think through what is available to me that I could conceptually just bring it to an end, literally end my life. And at one point in time, maybe about 30 days into my incarceration, through just an unbelievable set of circumstances, the Holy Spirit brought about, I'm hired to be a chaplain assistant by, and he would be okay with me saying this. He might watch this podcast episode, by a very angry man who is quite furious at life. His wife had left him. His father had died of COVID. His entire chaplaincy ministry in the prison has been obliterated by COVID. And so his life work is been destroyed, and he's just angry at all of it. And here comes me as an applicant to be a chaplain assistant, and he hires me. And into meeting him and doing that job, I remember so clearly. About 2 months in, I'd gotten to know him fairly well, and he was a very tough love
Hmm.
type chaplain, which probably in the prison system is the most effective way to go. But I remember speaking to him and saying, "Why don't you all just make a box and a door on the box, and you can go inside the box, and there's a button. Let's say you press, and somehow maybe some pellets drop, and there's gas or something relatively. I don't want to make a big mess for anybody, but just take me out, and maybe you have a spring inside, and it like springs you over into a landfill, and I'm no longer anyone's problem. Why don't we have that?" And I'm earnest at this point of, I can't see the tomorrow.
Right.
I can't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And my father and this chaplain, and there's a few people, my pastor, who are writing me letters of, hey, not having directly been through what you're going through, but the sun will shine on you again.
Hmm.
But for someone who's right in the middle of the grief, when you're in it, everything seems so very dark. You can't see, you can't fathom, you're not even able to imagine
Mm.
that. And really what you start to think is, I'm just a burden. and to
Mm.
everybody, the system, my family, my children. I've obviously, by all U.S. citizen measures, I have drastically failed.
Right.
And because of that, if I could just cut my losses somehow, that would be great. And so I asked him this: why don't why don't y'all have something like that? And he said, okay, it is. It is one of the most punitive places in the nation that you could be. Yes. However, despite all that, the point of you being here is the hurt, is to push your soul through this so that one, you truly grasp what you have done, and that you hate this place so much that whatever you justified your actions that led you here, you never repeat those actions. That's the purpose of this. But he said, two, he said, this you may not be able to grasp right now. He said, the day and time will come, a year from now, a few years from now, you won't be here any longer. He said, you're going to be here for a few years. Let's just go ahead and pop the balloon of I'll make my first parole and be home. Let's and you know, these fallacies of I'll just go back to my life as how it was and I'll just pick back. No, your life will be markedly different, but you're going to leave here a few years. And though you can't see it, you're going to become changed in such a way that then, then at that point, the Holy Spirit, the Lord can use you. Now you're in a place to where you're going to have the ability to have more compassion. You're going to be humbled. You're going to also have gone through, and he said, this isn't the totality. Right now, you're third month in. This is not the totality of your experiences. There will be more. Some good, many not good. And you're going to go through it, and you will get through it, though you can't see that at this juncture. And I took that, and I remember I'm in his office, in the chaplain's office, and I mean, at this point in time, I'm just profusely crying. I can't, I can't, I can't see how I can do this any longer. And he's helping me see that's okay, because good news, you don't have a choice. There is no box. Everyone who's in prison, and we do this in life of, I know it said 55 and I was driving 70, but it's okay. We justify so many things we do in life. I know I should have reported that on my taxes, but it's okay.
Mhm.
Whether small or big, we justify so many things and we just mentally move on. The most wonderful thing that can happen to anybody is where you see my actions have earthly consequences
Yeah.
and it has heavenly consequences. This depression and embarrassment I feel, I need to accept, and I need to also acknowledge there are other people in my life, my children, my friends, my former coworkers, my wife, my mom and dad, that I have hurt,
Hmm.
and I have brought grief upon them. You know, someone in prison one time said, you leave a wake like a boat. You leave a wake behind you, and here's you just going along, and you're thinking, well, I haven't really hit anybody with my speedboat, but it's all these people that your wake is kind of radiating out, and it's hitting people and it's hurting them. And you're not even turning around to look and see, have I hurt anybody? And it was at that time I realized I am the sole reason I am here. No
Yeah.
one else.
They're taking
No,
responsibility for your actions and
100%.
yeah.
In a way that I had never done, even when I was at that sentencing day. And of course, you say, I'm sorry. And, you know, you, I hadn't really fully taken full, kind of like full grasp
Yeah.
of this was my doing. None of the other reasons or outside circumstances matter. None of that is relevant. I chose this. And that grief, you also have to come with, therefore, I acknowledge the loss.
Mm.
What loss have I brought about? Well, my children temporarily lost their father. My wife, for all intents and purposes, has lost her husband. My mom and dad have lost their son. My company, my mortgage company, it goes out of business. Those employees that had jobs and they had families that were they lost their job. People to whom I owed money who were thinking, oh, well, if he remains free, then he can pay me back. Well, now I'm incarcerated. Those people don't get paid back the money that they were owed. And it just, you start to see, I have caused a great deal of hurt. And with that knowledge, I can then really start to move forward. Okay, I shouldn't want to step inside, suicide box.
Right.
And I need to say to myself, okay, stop looking for things of that nature and start looking for what's the next right thing for me to do. My dad says that all the time. Every day, just do the next right thing.
Yeah.
Well, how do you do the next right thing? You have to be looking.
Right.
Look around, be aware of your circumstances and say, do I see a need I can meet? Do I see someone who's hurting whom I can help?
Mm.
And what a blessing it was working for the chaplain that it allowed me to be in the place where I had access to see people who were hurting. And I
And
started to realize
I would assume that everybody in prison is hurting.
they are, but they don't acknowledge it.
Oh, interesting. But you
You know,
know what? Actually, the people that you see in the grocery store and at church, pretty much everybody is living with some kind of pain, some kind of wound.
absolutely. Everybody is going through something. Everybody is carrying some weight that you are not aware of. You have to, I would tell, as time progressed and I began to be put in more and more responsibility over chaplaincy functions, I began to oversee services. And then if the volunteer pastor that Sunday doesn't show up, well, somebody has to give a sermon. Somebody has to speak. Well, okay, well, John, that's you. You start to realize two things, and you hit the nail on the head, Stacia. There are people who are in need and they're consciously aware of it. I'm aware that I'm in need, that I'm hurting, and they're actively seeking. Those are the people that reach out to you when you go by for chaplaincy visits. They go by and they say, hey, help, help. Okay. Then there are those who are hurting, but they've chosen to go through worldly methods to assuage those hurts. Maybe they're doing drugs in prison and there's an absurd amount of drugs in prison. And so you see people that are actively hurting themselves and you realize you're in pain.
Right.
And you start making overtures. There are a lot of gangs in prison. And you start learning that, and I was so spared. I was told early on, like you're going to have to join a gang, not in those words, in more colorful terms, but you're going to have to join a gang. That's just how
For
it's going to be
protection, right?
for protection,
Yeah.
and they won't accept you. The system won't accept you. Not, they're not going to let you just. I'm fine. I'm good. No, they don't
Yeah, this
go.
is a whole other
It's a whole other.
world that you're
Yes.
navigating.
It's an alternate reality, and you start to realize the people that both work in that system and that are incarcerated in the system, they're both trapped in
Mhm.
this alternate world where normal rules do not apply. A lot of common sense does not work here, and you learn quickly I need to constantly be I need to be vigilant. I need to be hyper aware because there are things going on all around me And so if I'm going to be effective in the ministry that the Holy Spirit has brought me into, I need to be aware of things I may not normally see. And
Mm.
there were numerous times that I was removed from situations where I might have gotten hurt. There were times I inadvertently upset somebody who was high up in a gang by something I did. I was not even aware that I had done something. There would be a word passed down to me, "Hey, Coop, um, there's a smash order on you," and you'd say, "Well, what's that?" He said, "Well, the next time they see you, like when they find you, and you're not currently in your, your where you little area you live, when you come out, they're going to hurt you." And it doesn't mean like they're gonna punch you once or twice. Like no, they're going to break your face. They might not kill you, but you're going to get significantly hurt.
Mm.
And through those, it was just unbelievable. Through those circumstances, every time something that happened, I would be just almost. It was supernatural. I would be removed from that situation, and we're gonna, I'm just sitting there thinking, "Well, gosh, maybe I can talk to them before this happens, and we can
I can see you being like, I'll talk my way out of
I'll
this.
talk my way out of this. I'm good at this. We'll just say like, listen, you don't really want to hurt me. Hitting me won't fix anything. In fact, we can have a whole conversation of does fighting actually fix anything at all? I would argue with you, it probably hasn't. When you smashed out Big Tony last week, did that fix the problem with Big Tony? Probably not. And the reality of it is like you're not going to get two words out before you know.
Before,
Yeah, your face is smashed.
yeah.
But my point in that
So,
is it's unbelievable how you see people in pain
right.
to that point. I'm not going to name the gang because it might get me in trouble. But there was a gang where the speaker of the gang ended up being in my dorm. Just to educate those who are not up on our gang knowledge and hierarchy, the speaker is very high up in the administrative side of a gang, and he speaks. He is the mouthpiece for which all orders, do this, don't do that, come across the state. He's the guy that says, and if he
Across the
says something,
state, the whole state, not just
the whole
that
state.
prison.
Oh yeah, these gangs cover the entire state. Sometimes they're nationwide, depends on the gang. So one, to be made aware that guy is the speaker of XYZ gang, it's a really big deal. And
Mm.
two, for him to be here and near you, the best rule of thumb is just do not interface with that person at all. The story becomes humorous in that he had just been put in the faith-based dorm, which I at the time oversaw, and I had yet to be informed who he was. And so John Cooper over the faith-based dorm, I'm the mentor. That was the title they gave me. I walk over to this person and he's facing away from me, and I'm just going to do the howdy. Welcome to the faith-based dorm. We're so glad you're here. Here's your notebook for the classes we're going to be taking, and I've got a free Bible for you. I'm going to do my hello, and it's a pleasure to meet you. What's your name? So I go, and so he's facing away, and I walk up to him and I tap him on the shoulder, "Hey, mister," kind of thing. In very quick order, a few things happen. I'm facing him, he's facing away from me. Someone has picked me up from behind and is pulling me through the air, and I'm just now realizing like I'm moving away from this person at fast speed, and I realize someone is carrying me. And at the same time, he has turned around with the intention of punching with all his force whoever was behind him, because you do not touch the speaker. No, you are not to physically touch. He is not to be touched. Even guards are very hesitant because these are powerful people. He's intending someone has touched me, and that person, once he found out after the situation calmed down that he'd been moved to the faith-based dorm, and in the faith-based dorm, here are the classes that we teach that I oversee, he became elated because he had been trying to take these classes for over a decade. The classes are only taught in the faith-based dorm. They look good to parole, and everyone says how transformative these classes were. That person actually came to me towards the end of my stay in the dorm and thanked me for helping him, because he was able to take the classes and able to get the certificates, and probably was a little bit less violent a speaker of the gang than maybe he once was. That anger management class, I think, might have been a real humdinger
Hmm.
for him. The funny part about this is, and you're not going to appreciate this because you don't know, he told me his name.
Wow.
No one knew his actual name. There are certain things that you don't have in prison. I'm a number. I was 2345741. And any time that I needed to be instructed in any way, I'm 2345741. You're not John Cooper. You're not whatever. He told me his first name, and he said, there's only 3 people alive in the world who know my name.
Oh, wow.
Mind numbing. And so
Yeah.
you reach people in really unbelievable ways. So as you're processing through your grief and you're trying to appreciate the gravity and the depth of the loss, you're also trying to say, how can I be helpful to someone else today? Because in helping them, I'm going to make a small bit of improvement in me.
Oh, that's so true. That is so true. And to kind of sum things up, John, I think those of us who have experienced significant loss, the empathy that is created in us, maybe even more of a supernatural ability to see other people's hurts
Mm-hmm.
and their wounds and just sit with them and help. That's one of the blessings of severe loss, is the ability to get beyond yourself, to recognize people's wounds, and just to be present for them.
Yes.
So there is a lot more that we could talk about, and we may
Sure.
talk about it again in the future. I think there's a lot more to this story,
Yes, ma'am.
but in terms of grief, what last words of wisdom would you give to someone who is experiencing the kind of grief that you did over poor choices?
Sure. First off, you have to, I mean, like you're ingesting a delicious sandwich, you really need to take down deep in you. This is a period of your life. This will not last
Mm,
forever.
mm,
Whatever has occurred, whether outside of your control or not, this will not be a forever situation. There is a tomorrow. There is a day and time where it will not be so gloomy. And that's not just lip service. That's someone who's been through very dark things and had a hard time really imagining something so glorious. It'd be like if you've never seen a really beautiful sunset or beautiful mountainscape, and you tell someone there's these things called mountains, and they're big and they're beautiful, and they're like, well, I can try to imagine a mountain until you see it. And so all I can tell you is try to imagine, but it's going to be such a joy when that time comes that you are past that point.
mm,
Second, you need to understand the importance of a second chance for yourself.
mm,
Have you brought hurt upon yourself and others? Yes. Are you ruined? No.
mm.
Really important for you to understand the concept of your life is a book, and you have written many chapters in that book. This is not the last chapter. This is not the end. There are more chapters left to write. And you, person going through the grief and the loss, must accept there are good chapters that I'm going to write. Some of those chapters I see ahead of me, some I can't even see yet. And I have to trust that those chapters are going to be so wonderful and so delightful that when others read the chapters of your life in this book, they're going to say, wow, wow, that's amazing. I thought, gosh, what a hard place in the middle. But then I read the next chapter and
Mm.
then the next chapter. That's your life. That's your life, person. Do not buy into the lie that all hope is lost.
Mm.
Hope is the most beautiful four-letter word. Because if you can remember, there is hope. Have hope. Is hope easy? No, it's not. Does that mean that it's just, lollipops and rainbows? No. But what it does mean is whatever hardship you're going through this process, the ups and downs as you're writing through that grief and loss cycle, there are good days ahead. More good days than bad. And that's coming. So therefore, prepare yourself. Do not allow yourself to be waylaid with poor choices. Let's work on things that are worthwhile for you and for those around you. So I hope that's helpful.
I love that, John. That when you're in the darkest place, know that the darkness does not last. No
No,
matter how dark it is, no matter how far to the bottom you
mm-hmm,
have gotten,
mm-hmm,
there is always hope. And
absolutely.
thank you, my friend, for sharing so vulnerably and honestly with the listeners of Sir the Rifle.
My pleasure.